Good evening and welcome to Beyond the Numbers here on Joy News. Tonight we take a comprehensive look at the 2024 mid-year budget review.
We will be focusing on the impact of the workers' salary remaining unchanged and analysis on the cash allocation to the energy sector repayment shortfalls.
And of course, we will shine a spotlight on the bailout package for the financial sector cleanup, along with a detailed analysis of the 9 revenue streams that have been declined. My name is Winston Taki, and I'll be on this trip with...
My name is Isaac Ofeje. Let's take a quick turn. We'll be back after this short break with analysis. You're welcome back to Beyond the Numbers. And tonight we are performing a very special task, breaking down the 2024 mid-year budget review, trying to give you a 360 of what Finance Minister Dr. Mohamed Amin Adams presented to Parliament. What's in for you? What's that 360 angle that we are talking about? And Winston will be joining me with the budget statement. He's working in at the moment with the 2024 mid-year budget, and that's Winston. He comes in studio with the budget. Winston, what's in the bag? Let me have a look at that. There you go.
Usually, if the finance minister walks into the House of Parliament, the first thing he does is raise the budget to let you know that indeed this is your money, this is the report, and this is what the government has done in the period under review. So
the money is here, the budget is here as well, right?
It's intact.
Great. So that is what we are going to do for you, breaking down the numbers on Beyond the Numbers. Tonight is very special on the 2024 budget. We have a number of questions that we'll be finding answers, and I'll be putting the budget here. The budget is in there, right? The money is also in there.
Everything is intact, absolutely.
Great. So now let's go into the numbers. Now, the 2024 media budget presented some special outlook, and there were some cuts as well. If you can walk us through what we see on the screen. First of all, I see, revenues, and I also see expenditure that has actually declined. What can we expect in the last half of 2024, Winston?
Already, it's been an interesting 2023. We saw a lot of challenges the government has to handle, especially dealing with debt, restructuring negotiations with external creditors. There was a lot of tension and pressure, especially on the Finance Minister, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adams, because he came in to step in the shoes of our former Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, because of the challenges the economy has to go through. So in 2024, there was an estimated budget of about 76.1 billion, and that was a key issue then with regards to the target within the first 6 months of the year. So government has done a lot of restructuring, a lot of exchanges that have gone on throughout government expenditure, but we want to see indeed how much in the first 6 months government projected to spend. So in the first 6 months...
It's actually revenues and grants in the first 6 months of the year.
Absolutely. So in terms of revenue, we saw government project about 76.1 billion in the first 6 months. So far, the government has been able to actualize about 74.7 billion Ghana cedis. That's how much we've made.
Just like a quick swap and look at the gap in terms of what exists in the numbers. So go again, let's see what we have, and the number will come. Yeah, exactly. That's about, yes.
About 1.42 billion Ghana cedis.
So that is the gap that we are analyzing. So definitely this is what government programmed to get in the first half of 2024 in terms of revenue and grant. And in terms of the provisional data that we have provided by the Finance Ministry, instead of the 7, can you go back? Instead of the 76.1, we have 74.7. This is provisional. We need to, stress that this is provisional data, but we still have a gap of 1.42 billion. And this comes at a time that government really needs revenue, Winston.
Government needs a lot of revenue. Government needs revenue from every sources. There was increased tension when there was projected information that there was going to be an introduction of taxes, on electricity. That also didn't see the light of day. Interestingly, many projected probably government will cut down certain taxes into this mid-year budget. That also did not happen. There was also speculation that probably government has some new strategy under the sleeves going into the latter part of the year. But it gives a good signal, especially to our IMF, those who are monitoring government, especially in an election year. People are not quite anxious whether possibly government may decide to cut down expenditure. But nonetheless, that also did not happen in some aspects. But we'll get to the figures shortly.
The uphill tax here is that if you look at this revenue, 76.1 billion that government wanted to get in the first half of the year, is just 43% of the total projected revenue for 2024. This means that for the rest of the half of the year, government has a lot of tax to do to raise more than 53% of revenues to make sure they get their target of some, more than 170 billion Ghana cedis that they are looking for in revenue. Let's look at other slides and see what we can get from this media budget. So we start from revenues. Why are we having the shortfall? We need to analyze and see where the cuts and the drops are actually coming from. So we first take a look at the 9 tax handles that dwindled according to the provisional data that the Ministry of Finance gave us. We start with personal taxes. And this is important because, for a country to grow and for you to get more revenue, we always see that people are complaining about taxes, but it's what government actually needs to make sure they have what they targeted. In terms of personal taxes, government was targeting 10.4 billion Ghana cedis. Provisional data, puts the figure as 9.4. We did the math, and the difference is around 954 million Ghana cedis. And that's huge, Winston.
That's huge. When we talk about personal tax, we are talking about taxes on your income, taxes on your salary, taxes on any commission that you may have as an individual. So government, and that happened to be a key financial tool for government revenue source. And it has been consistent over the years. But it appeared that this slight dwindling probably might be due to certain factors, that is enough revenue that has not gone into the salary increments into the workers. So these are key issues that came up. But to see a dwindle, probably government did not adjust that target possibly well, because if you are to target and you 10.9 and you hit 9.4, it's not too bad.
It's not too bad, especially when these are provisional data.
Provisional data. These are structured taxes, either up and down. Government has assurance that they will get this money.
Let's go to the next slide and see. It wasn't just personal taxes that dropped, but taxes, company taxes on oil also had a hit. But in terms of company taxes, the taxes that companies pay, we saw a rise. What government projected, they got more than that figure. But taxes on oil, in terms of company taxes on oil, had a significant decline. There you go, a big figure of 74.3 million Ghana cedis, Winston.
Some can attribute it to the differential exchange rate, especially when the cedi began to depreciate against the dollar. When these companies, who are probably huge oil firms, decide to pay taxes, some of them pay in dollars, but due to the exchange rate differentials, we tend to lose value in terms of how much we have as a country. And we hope, should the value of global oil prices decide to go up, government is likely to benefit in this angle. Brent
crude is actually coming down in terms of pricing. But what we also know that in terms of the revenue side, the international, taxes on international taxes actually had a significant increase. You made mention of exchange rate. That is a part where we also benefited from, because most of the inflows in the duties, the import duties, were actually in dollars. And so when you have the cedi rate not really favoring against the dollar, when you still do the conversion into your local currency, you tend to get more, because now you're multiplying by a certain bigger multiplier. And that gave government that huge inflow in terms of import duties. What they budgeted for was actually more than the provisional outturn in 2020, for the first half of 2020. Let's look at another tax that also saw a decline.
Concerning the trade tax, it is sometimes perceived that in the second quarter of the year, we tend to see a lot of trade activities happen across the world. The fear is that going into the third and fourth quarter of the year, those things will slow down. And data has proven that trade slows within those periods. The second half of the year, trade slows. And unfortunately for us, global trade may a bit slide down because elections happening across the world. Companies or government may not try to trade much. We know people are being circumspect, especially in terms of where to invest their money.
Looking at what is happening in the US, for instance, so many uncertainties around their elections. Now we know that Biden has actually stepped down for Kamala Harris to take his position. These are some of the uncertainties that business will be looking at in terms of investment and all of that. But in terms of import duties, we did well. We did really, really well. In terms of what we projected, we got more than that. That's huge. But there was another tax handle that saw a significant drop of 277.6 million Ghana cedis. The National Health Insurance Levy, yeah. It didn't really do well in the first half.
Surprisingly, it's also added to the VAT, value-added tax. So when you buy any product in the market, you end up paying this National Health Insurance Levy. It's seen in every product. Indirectly, although the target was estimated at 3.1 billion, we ended up getting 3.1 with a shortfall of 277.6 million Ghana cedis. The reason probably some have decided because there is not enough purchasing power in the hands of consumers. Consumers' cost of living have gone high, therefore affecting their ability to purchase products or stuff. And therefore, these targets may probably go down and government may not be able to make the difference.
When you go to the malls, you are not seeing the numbers, the queues that you used to see possibly, let's say, 4 or 5 years ago, or let's say even just 3 years ago because of the economic hardship what people are facing. People have their disposable incomes dwindling because of high inflation rates, the cedi losing more than 80% of its value against the dollar. All of this will affect such tax handles like the NHI. And not just that, its cousin, the Get Fund levy, also saw a hit. Let's try and see if we can find something. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Get Fund took a bigger hit compared to even the NHIL, dropped by 278.3 million Ghana cedis. If you compare the target versus the provisional. The
interesting department that may feel much impact of revenue shortfall is the educational sector. So we see a lot of infrastructure development that should have gone into the educational sector. Government's senior high school, free senior high school policy, this Get Fund is a beneficiary, basically.
Big component.
In terms of the funding. We speak about distribution. We realize that education sectors seems to be improving. Nonetheless, the amount of investment that we need, especially in that sector, handling the school feeding program is a key challenge for government. Handling the payment of supply of teachers is a key challenge. Already there's negotiation with CTAC, with government right now. Today, CTAC also decided to pull out of the negotiation because it said the confirmation and signatory on the document that was supposed to be given to them by the finance ministry has not been signed. So they've decided to pull out.
But Winston, in spite of all this, this figure is interesting. In terms of revenue, I mean, we were expecting some 1.16 billion Ghana cedis in the first half of the year. I mean, what we saw is that instead of that, we are, it's about one, in terms of what we want when the year ends, instead of 176.4 billion, we've now, saying that we need additional 1.1 billion Ghana cedis.
Where will it come from?
Where will it come from, especially when you see all of these key components in terms of the tax handles, dwindling? So, we were looking for some 176.4 billion Ghana cedis as the projected. But in terms of the revised, we are adding additional 1.2 billion to it. But looking at this analysis, it is difficult where government is going to get the additional revenue. Looking at the fact that most of the key tax handles have actually seen, 9 of them have seen a drop. But I saw that e-levy, which has not really been doing well, government has actually, increased their projection in terms of what they want. E-levy, this is it.
So the e-transaction, we understand when government introduced it, the first was aberration against the policy because many have said industry players did not get the proper stakeholder consultation before it was enforced. We saw the challenge in Parliament. And data and research I did told me that the e-levy was a key indicator and downward rating of our economy because most investors were looking at the challenge we had as a country, our debt structure, whether we can sustain and manage our debt efficiently. If we have another revenue source that has been trusted and projected to raise about $1 billion for the economy, e-levy could be the answer. But when we assessed the performance of e-levy, it has fallen short of a target.
In fact, Winston, not to cut you, but we projected to get some 7 billion in the first, estimation. We ended up getting only, I think, roughly a little bit above 800 or I think 300 something million Ghana cedis. A big shortfall in terms of what we projected versus what we actually got. But going forward, the last half of the year, government believes that they want more from the e-levy. They want more revenue from that. But what we've seen is that even in the first half of the year, instead of the 898 million that they projected to get, they only got 810, provisional anyway, but they still could not get about 88 million Ghana cedis.
Surprisingly, the e-levy was one policy that was well sold or not well sold. Because you understand the promises or the tag. It was going to finance YouStart, a policy that focused on giving capital to entrepreneurs, empowering them with training.
The youth as well.
Exactly. Part of the e-levy will go into road construction. Another part will go into financing education.
It was the reason why we abolished road tolls, right?
Absolutely.
Which was bringing in some 72 million Ghana cedis every year.
Yeah. Experts have questioned why the road toll were removed because they were adhered in initial contractual agreements before some of the loans were given. So removing them wasn't a smart move, particularly from expert perspective, but bringing them also will be a strategic move from government because we did more revenue loopholes, basically.
Let's go another tax component. Yes, COVID-19 health levy. This is the revenue that a lot of Ghanaians feel that should be off the books because we are done with COVID. Why should we be paying these levies? But government believes that, we want 1.4 billion Ghana cedis from this tax component instead of the 1.4 billion, just like you said, because of the dwindling purchasing power and the fact that people are not consuming the way they are supposed to consume because of the economic difficulties. All of these tax handles, e-levy, NHIL, Get Fund, which all finds itself in the VAT. VAT itself got some reduction in terms of projection. For me, it is I think it's the first time that we are seeing VAT not really getting what it's supposed to bring in, if my memory serves me right. But it's all because of these babies who come together to make up the VAT what it is. All of these tax handles, just look at the COVID-19 health levy, a slash of 320 million Ghana cedis in terms of the target versus the provisional outturn, Winston.
Government can also use a strategy. Instead of expanding the base, they could also expand the interest. Basically, if I say interest, if you want people to pay tax, one person is paying tax, the same person is paying a double tax, the same person paying triple tax. Why not reduce the tax component so that more people can have it, the same product, increasing the acceptance and purchasing power, and basically ensuring that everyone access.
And in fact, this is a consumption tax. So if you go to the mall and you buy bread, you buy water, you buy anything that has VAT, you're actually paying this COVID-19 health levy. Let's go to the...
I went to a particular shop and I marked a particular product with a pen. 5 weeks later, I came, that same product was there. Why? Because many people don't have access to money to buy that product. And that is a key challenge. Although at first, you go there and you have to keep requesting for that product to be placed on the shelf. So it's a real proof that we are not supposed to be where we are and there is not much money in the pocket of individuals.
Yes, so at this point, we have to actually focus on expenditure because you can't just do the analysis just on revenue and not look at expenditure because the deficit is huge. Now, this is where labor and even the financial sector cleanup all comes in. Let's first take a look at labor, what labor should be expecting. This year, we've seen a number of strikes and threats and all of that. So I was expecting that
at least
the budget for labor
provisions
will go up a little bit. What we are saying is that government has decided to keep the budget for labor as still some 64 billion Ghana cedis.
It's a very risky, bold step by government, considering election year. Labor tends to have a bigger bite during election year. And if you look at our budget components, labor and compensation takes a huge chunk.
And interest rates, interest payments.
Payment. And they take about almost 60% of our overall budget. And it's very tricky because irrespective of how much we make, most of the time, labor and interest payment tend to swallow the revenue that we make as a country compared to other components of the revenue sources.
In fact, government has done something that possibly maybe in terms of the magnitude we're all not expecting. They've cut expenditure by some more than 20 billion Ghana cedis.
That's amazing.
But this is why it should not be a surprise, because when we did the math, we realized that majority of the cut was coming from where the fact that we've done debt restructuring and we are not servicing most of our debt.
So these are more like technical cuts.
Exactly, technical
not specifically
cuts.
Intentional or policy-directed cuts.
Because if you look at interest payment, for instance, Winston, if you can take a look at it, we were hoping to pay some 55.9 billion Ghana cedis. In terms of the revised, we are talking about 48 point something billion.
Yes, that's
and the change is big, right? It's about more than 7 billion Ghana cedis. That's a big save.
7.9 billion.
7.9 billion. That's a big save from that cut.
What about the subsidies on petroleum as well?
Subsidies on petroleum, there's a cut there, right?
I see about 180 million.
Cut.
Initially, cut. Initially, we're estimated to raise about 426 million, and now we hit about 308, meaning we have a shortfall of 100.
So that simply means that if you have fuel prices going up and you expect government to come in to subsidize, they are telling you that, yes, it's going to be difficult. I mean, they've made provisions for subsidies, but it's not that big in terms of, that. Last one has to do with the financial sector cleanup. People are expecting their monies, but there's a slash here, Winston.
The slash from 4.0 to 3.5 in this revised budget is an interesting one. Already, we've seen in the budget government indication of settling some of the
and this is an election year, you know?
This election year. So government has made a provision. The president has reiterated that fund to be paid to depositors who have lost their money. So there's been a bit of government commitment. But this particular bailout cost, many have questioned that why should the central bank wait for such a cost to become a burden on individuals? All these years, what has happened to the financial sector?
Well, it's interesting what we've been able to pick from the budget, and we hope that you enjoyed it. In fact, looking at the fact that Labour, going into an election year, government has made a bold decision to do what? In this budget, keep Labour's budget constant. What we are saying is that the financial sector cleanup, there's also some sort of cut in terms of what government is hoping to pay. Instead of 4 billion, we are now going to pay 3.5, a cut of more than 500 million Ghana cedis. That's a bold step. But the good news is that government has cut their expenditure by more than 20 billion Ghana cedis. All because of the debt
We have
restructuring.
more interesting surprises in the budget. We'll bring you up-to-date analysis on them. That'll be it for today. My name is Winston Taki, and I did with my finance minister,
Isaac Upiej. It's a wrap.
We'll see you next week.